Working harder is often the exact reason you're not moving forward, not because your effort isn't real, but because the system you're in doesn't reward effort the way you think it does. And the more you double down on hard work, the deeper you quietly lock yourself into a role that no one plans to promote you out of. That's the part nobody says out loud. You stay late, you fix things others ignore. You become the person people rely on when something goes wrong. And somehow, you're still the one being overlooked. Not once, but repeatedly. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. In most workplaces, effort is invisible unless it's translated into something visible. And visibility doesn't come from how hard you work, it comes from how your work is seen, told, and remembered. Invisible work builds invisible careers. You can be the most dependable person in the room and still be the easiest one to keep exactly where you are, because reliability creates comfort, and comfort kills urgency. The more stable you make things, the less incentive there is to move you. That's the first trap, but it gets deeper. You think consistency proves your value, but in many environments, consistency just proves you can be counted on to stay where you are. And when people know you'll keep delivering, they stop thinking about what you deserve next. They start thinking about what they'd lose if you left. And that changes everything because now promoting you isn't a reward, it's a risk. Let that sink in for a second. The better you are at holding things together, the more dangerous it becomes for the system to let you go somewhere else. And here's what makes it worse: most people respond to being overlooked by working even harder. They stay later, say yes more often, pick up more responsibility, try to prove somehow that they're worth noticing. But effort without strategy doesn't get you promoted, it gets you depended on. And being depended on is not the same as being valued. That's a distinction most people learn too late. Think about a normal week. It's 9:30 p.m. You're still fixing a deck that someone senior will present tomorrow. Your name won't be on it, but you know if you don't fix it, it reflects badly on the team, so you do it anyway. No one asked you to, but everyone expects you to. And that expectation didn't appear overnight. You built it. One yes at a time, then there's the meeting. You've done the groundwork, pulled the data, connected the dots, but when it's time to speak, someone else summarizes your insight in a cleaner, louder way, and the room nods at them. Not you. You tell yourself it doesn't matter as long as the work gets recognized. But it does matter because recognition doesn't automatically flow to the person who did the work. It flows to the person who owns the narrative. Narrative beats effort every time. And then there's the weekend. You check Slack just in case. You respond quickly. You solve something small before it becomes big. It feels responsible, professional, maybe even necessary. But what you're really doing is training people to see your availability as normal. And once something becomes normal, it stops being appreciated, it becomes expected. Convenience replaces fairness, and convenience almost always wins. But here's the part most people don't realize: you're not being overlooked because you're not good enough. You're being overlooked because your value is too easy to access, too consistent, too quiet, too reliable, and that makes you invisible in the ways that actually matter. Now, here's where the system reveals itself. You think managers promote the hardest workers, but most managers promote the people who solve their biggest problems, and those aren't always the same people. Sometimes your manager's biggest fear isn't whether you're doing good work, it's whether the team looks stable, predictable, low risk. If you're the one keeping everything running smoothly, you're reducing their stress, and removing you would increase it. So even if they like you, even if they respect you, like there's a hidden resistance to moving you because promoting you creates a gap. And gaps are uncomfortable. You thought you were being recognized. In reality, you were being stabilized. And HR, they don't reward effort either. They reward patterns that fit systems: clear impact, visible ownership, defined progression. If your work doesn't translate cleanly into those categories, it doesn't scale in their eyes. It doesn't matter how many late nights you've done. What matters is whether your contribution can be easily understood, measured, and justified. An invisible effort is hard to justify, especially in rooms you're not in. This is where many high performers get stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they've optimized for being useful instead of being promotable. Usefulness keeps you busy, promotability moves you forward. Those are different games, and most people are unknowingly playing the first one. Here's the twist that stings a bit: the traits that made you valuable early on are the same traits that can trap you later: being dependable, being easy to work with, being low drama, being willing to step in wherever needed. Those things get you trusted, but they don't automatically get you advanced, because advancement requires something else: clarity, positioning, visibility, and sometimes restraint. That last one is uncomfortable because it feels like holding back, but it's not about doing less, it's about being more deliberate. You don't need to prove you can do everything. You need to make it clear what you should be known for and what you shouldn't quietly absorb anymore. You weren't stuck because you lacked ambition. You were stuck because you were too loyal to a system that rewards perception over effort. And no one taught you the difference. So you compensated with hard work, which only reinforced the cycle. But here's where things can shift. Not dramatically, not overnight, but subtly, powerfully. You start noticing where your effort disappears, where your contributions get absorbed into the team instead of attached to your name. And instead of working harder, you start working more visibly, not louder, not arrogantly, just intentionally. You speak a little earlier in meetings, not to dominate, but to anchor your ideas before someone else reframes them. You don't wait until everything is perfect before sharing, because perfection delays visibility, and delayed visibility is lost visibility. You also begin to draw quiet boundaries, not aggressive ones, not confrontational, just small shifts. You don't respond instantly to everything anymore. You don't automatically say yes to every last minute fix. You pause, just enough to signal that your time isn't infinitely available. Because when everything is urgent, nothing is valued. And when you're always available, you're rarely respected at the level you deserve. Another shift happens. You start translating your work, not just doing it. You highlight outcomes, connect dots, make it easier for others to understand the impact. Because people don't reward what they don't fully see, and they don't see what you don't clearly show. This isn't about self promotion in the loud, uncomfortable sense. It's about making your contribution legible, understandable, rememberable. That's what moves careers. And then there's something even quieter. You begin to let go of the need to be the one who saves everything. You stop being the silent fixer, not because you don't care, but because constantly fixing things hides the need for change. And when there's no visible problem, there's no pressure to evolve the system, including your role within it. This doesn't mean you stop being good at your job. It means you stop being the cushion that absorbs everything without recognition. You allow a little friction, a little visibility of gaps, because sometimes progress only happens when something feels slightly uncomfortable. And this is where it all comes together. Working hard isn't the problem. Working hard without visibility, boundaries, and positioning is. Effort is a foundation, not a strategy. And for a long time, you were told they were the same thing. They're not. The most dangerous career trap isn't being bad at your job, it's being so good at it that no one wants to move you out of it. That's the quiet truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So you don't need to burn out trying to prove your worth anymore. You don't need to keep stacking invisible effort hoping someone notices. You just need to start playing a slightly different game. Same skills, different lens, because in the end, Hard work gets you trusted, but only visible, intentional work gets you out.